Hello and welcome to Chabot News for April 30th, 2026. My name is Alexa, and today we'll be covering Pentagon escorts for journalists, the world's oldest nun, and flu shots. In entertainment news, Chris will tell you about the latest controversy involving Jimmy Kimmel. In sports news, Greg has the latest updates on legendary NFL linebacker Lawrence Taylor. And finally, Enrique will give us his top 5 stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. All that and more coming up in today's edition of Chabot News. College used to be a no-brainer if you wanted to achieve higher earnings. But now, with the affordability at top of minds, the staggering sticker price for college, and changing labor market dynamics, is college still a sound investment? Brian Abel is in Washington to break down today's higher education landscape and what you need to think about when answering whether college is right for you or not. Brian?
High school graduation season is almost here, and with it, some big decisions.
We estimate that of 2026 grads, about 46% are going to head to traditional four-year colleges.
Less than half, according to NerdWallet's analysis of federal data. Certainly a factor, the skyrocketing sticker price to go to college. U.S. News and World Report cites the 10 most expensive private colleges in the U.S. all have annual tuitions and required fees over $73,000 per year. That's not including books, supplies, or room and board. But that's likely not the true price, according to experts.
Most people do not pay that amount.
Instead, experts say, focus on the net price, factoring in financial aid.
Funds that you do not have to repay. So that's going to include grants, scholarships, and programs like work study.
Another factor when asking, is it worth it, is the return on investment. Economics professor at Wellesley College, Phil Levine, says it's an investment decision. And while nothing is guaranteed, there's a high probability of success.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your life of higher earnings.
But experts also stress that college or no college is a personal decision, and it isn't for everyone.
A lot of it is about people knowing who they are, which I think mostly they do. If you really like working with your hands, a skilled trade is a great opportunity, and you should pursue that.
Thank you for that report, Brian. College can still pay off, but in today's economy, it's no longer one size fits all. The Pentagon has implemented a new policy requiring journalists to be escorted through the building. The Pentagon can require escorts for journalists inside the building, at least for now, while the legal fight over the Defense Department's restrictive press policy continues. The Federal Appeals Court decision pauses a lower court order that restricted the Pentagon from implementing the policy requiring journalists to be escorted by authorized department personnel. A spokesperson for the New York Times said the ruling only grants an emergency stay pending a decision on the Pentagon's appeal. The New York Times filed the lawsuit challenging the Pentagon's press policies late last year. The publication argues it violates its First Amendment and due process rights. This new policy comes after TMZ begins their coverage in the country's capital. The federal government is moving to reclassify marijuana. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche signed an order Thursday that would make it a Schedule III drug. That's the same as Tylenol with codeine and ketamine. Right now, it's a Schedule I drug, like heroin and ecstasy. Schedule I drugs are considered to have no medical use. Rescheduling marijuana would open the door to more research on its medicinal properties. It would also likely ease the federal tax burden on dispensaries in states where the drug is legal. The Drug Enforcement Agency has to hold administrative hearings before a judge on the change before it can take effect. Now we go over to Chris with this week's entertainment news.
Thanks, Alexa. Late-night host Jimmy Kimmel is responding to criticism by First Lady Melania Trump and calls from President Donald Trump to have him fired. The backlash stems from a roast-style joke Kimmel made on his show about the couple days before the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. In a social media post, Melania Trump called his comments hateful and violent rhetoric. The president later said Kimmel should be fired by ABC. During his monologue Monday night, Kimmel fired back at Melania Trump, suggesting she should have a conversation with the president about dialing back violent rhetoric. Kimmel acknowledged the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, calling it traumatic and scary. He also dismissed any suggestion his comments were linked to the incident. ABC has not commented on calls to fire Kimmel. An Austrian man has pleaded guilty to plotting an attack at a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna, according to the Austria press agency. The 21-year-old man was arrested in August 2024, just before Swift was due to perform the first of 3 concerts in Vienna. Police raided his home, where they found explosives, chemicals, Islamic State propaganda, and weapons. He faced numerous charges, including terrorist acts and belonging to a criminal organization. Swift ended up canceling the Vienna concerts, which more than 150,000 fans were due to attend. That's all for entertainment news this week. Now back to you, Alexa.
Thanks, Chris. A hot air balloon narrowly scrapes by disaster when it slammed into a casino. Patrick Cornell has it all in today's Take a Look at This.
Take a look at the moment a wayward hot air balloon slams into the side of a California casino. Aerials then show the rainbow-colored ride sliding over the top of the building with a person still inside the basket. Police say the pilot continued on, hitting a power line before safely landing the balloon in an open field a short time later. The near disaster took place during a groundbreaking ceremony for a new hotel. Authorities say the pilot made an unplanned launch due to unexpected strong winds. Fortunate to escape injury, as you can see the hard impact of the balloon hitting the wall, fully contorting the basket before breaking free. The FAA and NTSB have been notified.
Thank you for that wild report, Patrick. Thankfully, no one was injured in this shocking incident. In New York, the world's oldest nun has turned 113 years old. That's a title bestowed on her by Guinness World Records. Sister Frances Dominici Pescatella is a member of the Sisters of St. Dominic of Amityville. Born in 1913, she joined the order at 17 years old. Sister Pescatella was both a high school and college teacher. On Sunday, she was honored with a big birthday bash to celebrate the milestone. Pope Leo XIV also sent Sister Pescatella a proclamation. He's the 10th pope to serve in her lifetime. The Department of Justice had sought to charge Fed Chair Jerome Powell with crimes related to cost overruns on building renovations. The Justice Department stated it is dropping its investigation into the Federal Reserve Chair. That's according to U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. The move paves the way for the Senate to confirm Powell's replacement. President Donald Trump says he wants Kevin Warsh to be the Fed's next leader. Republican Senator Thom Tillis is a key vote to make that happen, and has said his support depends on ending the Powell probe. Trump accused Powell of improperly handling federal building renovation funds. The Justice Department found no evidence of wrongdoing. President Trump has had a long vendetta against the chair because he refused to reduce the federal interest rate. Now we go to Greg with this week's sports report.
Thanks, Alexa. Legendary NFL linebacker Lawrence Taylor is in the hospital with a stomach-related issue. The Pro Football Hall of Famer has been hospitalized since April 20th, according to his lawyer. The issue is non-life-threatening, and he's showing signs of improvement. Taylor was selected in the second round during the 1981 draft and was then chosen as Defensive Rookie of the Year. He played his entire 13-year career with the New York Giants. Hopefully, LT fully recovers and is able to enjoy his Hall of Fame retirement as one of the best in the game of pro football. In Eastern Kentucky, a local high school played host to its annual Special Olympics this past weekend. Relay races, walks, and dashes around a track. All of these track and field events took place at Bowling Green High School in Kentucky over the weekend. 170 Special Olympic athletes participated in the events. The winners will advance to the state tournament that will take place in June at Eastern Kentucky University. Organizers say they could not pull off this event without contributions from volunteers in the community. And they say the competition brought lots of joy to these athletes, whether they won or lost. The event in Eastern Kentucky went off without a hitch, and it looked like the kids had a really good time. That's it for the sports report this week. Now back to you, Alexa.
Thanks, Greg. The police department in Colton, California welcomed its newest and youngest officer Tuesday. Instead of taking the oath to protect and serve, little Ezra Galicia had to swear to obey his parents and to be good. It makes sense since this honorary officer is only 4 years old. His family says he has been obsessed with the police his entire young life. In fact, his aunt actually called the police dispatch line and asked if some officers could stop by his birthday party earlier this year. The police chief says the special ceremony is a reminder of why it is important the department builds a relationship with the community. European foreign ministers have agreed to expand sanctions on Iran in response to Tehran's restrictions on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. In January, the EU designated Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization, and in March it sanctioned Iranian officials over alleged human rights violations. At their meeting in Luxembourg, the ministers stressed that freedom of navigation is non-negotiable, according to Callas. Traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has been effectively halted by Iran since the start of the war, as vessels remain cautious amid the shaky U.S.-Iran ceasefire. Iranian officials said last month that they would continue charging fees for the safe passage of some tankers through the strait, after Lloyd's List Intelligence released a report on March 23rd, saying at least 2 vessels had paid large sums to cross. President Donald Trump says the U.S. will attack any Iranian boats, placing mines in the Strait of Hormuz. On social media, he says the American Navy won't hesitate to, quote, shoot and kill. It's a repeat of a threat he issued last month. Trump also says U.S. minesweepers are working to clear the waterway. The new comments come after Trump said he'd extend a ceasefire with Iran. He says he's awaiting a long-term proposal from Tehran. As the tension with Iran keeps rising, we sent out our reporter Chantal to ask students what are their thoughts on Trump's actions.
So, do Trump's actions make sense in regards to Iran? They don't make any sense to me. I spent 24 years in the Marine Corps. I understand what military operations are and I understand how they're conducted. And they shouldn't be conducted on social media. They should be conducted through proper channels in chain of command. He gives conflicting orders, or he dictates conflicting things, like a ceasefire, but then fires on. So when you dictate policy on social media, when things change, you can't take back what you say. So, no, nothing Trump does makes sense to me at all.
It does make sense. I would support the ceasefire because a lot of reasons are, one of the reasons is because, there's a lot of human life we're talking about here, and human life is important, and just the fact of, you take a human life, you're never the same.
Trump's actions don't make any sense, and I would support the ceasefire.
I'm not really wise when it comes to military interactions, at least for operations wise. That logic doesn't make sense to me, but I'm also not really sure. But I'm against any military interaction, especially in Iran right now, especially for the reason what we went in there for. I don't think there is a good reason, but the reason that we gave is not a good reason, or at least a reason I don't agree with.
Thanks for that excellent report, Chantal. Military planners from dozens of nations have been meeting in the UK. That country and France say the goal is to find, quote, practical military options for clearing the strait. Now we go to Enrique with this week's Top 5 segment.
Thanks, Alexa. Hello, I'm Enrique Pena, and I have this week's Top 5, which is Top 5 stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This is sort of a sequel to my Top 5 JoJo's character from a while ago. At number 5, we have Jean-Pierre Polnareff's Silver Chariot from Part 3. It's a simple but effective stand, being a knight wielding a rapier. It has some of my favorite fights from that part. At number 4, we have Narushio Anasui's Diver Down from Part 6. Diver Down has obviously one of my favorite designs, but the ability to submerge into surfaces is really cool to me, and Anasui uses it really well in Part 6. At number 3, I would have Catch the Rainbow from Part 7. The stand allows the user to manipulate the rain to either use it to walk or turn a large area of rain into mobile blades that affect projectiles. At number 2, we have Wonder Review from Part 8. Wonder Review has a phenomenal design and ability, being the misfortune that follows anyone pursuing the stand or user. The visuals for the stand were amazing, and I can't wait to see it animated in like 2032 probably. At number 1, we have another Part 8 stand, being Soft and Wet, which has the ability to use soap bubbles to take any of the 5 senses, and just has an amazing design. I can't get too into detail to keep it spoiler free, but this stand is just the greatest to me. And that's it for my top 5. Back to you, Alexa.
Thank you so much, Enrique. Inoculations from transmittable diseases have been mandatory since General Washington mandated the smallpox inoculation during the Revolutionary War. But now the Pentagon is making the flu shot optional for troops, effective immediately. On April 22nd, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called the vaccine mandate overly broad and not rational, saying it only weakens the country's war-fighting capabilities. The military's first flu vaccine mandate dates back to 1945. It was withdrawn in 1949, but later mandated again in the early 1950s. Vaccines and inoculations are generally considered urgent with regards to military readiness. I went out earlier this week to ask students at Chabot whether they believe vaccines should be mandatory.
Should vaccines be mandated or mandatory? My family works in healthcare, so I do believe a lot of vaccines should be mandatory for like public spaces and things.
Personally, for me, mandatory, because I have an autoimmune disease that will literally take me out if I don't. But for other people, if their system is fine and they can fight it off, then hey, it should be everybody's choice.
I think the reason why vaccines should be mandatory is because it can help to stay away from diseases and not people get sick a lot, and it's also like good for your health too. Yeah.
I feel like they probably should be, especially if you don't have any medical reason to not get them. But I can see how mandating could be a problem to others, as a lot of times people may feel that by mandating something like a vaccine, it's taking their, right to their own bodies or the right to choose what they do with their bodies.
With the inherent necessity for closed living quarters within the military, it seems to be a highly risky mandate with regards to maintaining military readiness. That's all for Chabot News this week. Thanks to all the students and staff in the Mass Communications Department here at Chabot College for making this production possible. You can watch us anytime online at youtube.com/ChabotTV. Stay tuned to KCTH Channel 27 on Comcast for more Chabot TV.